Paul Tilstone from FESTIVE ROAD, and today I'm in conversation with, actually, my own business partner, Caroline Strachan. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you.
Feels a little bit strange interviewing you on camera today, but welcome to the call.
It's a bit of a novelty, really, isn't it? I don't think we have ever been on stage together. I don't think you've ever interviewed me. So we're known to disagree quite a lot, but that's all right. That's a sign of a healthy partnership. But today, please, don't be too tough on me, right?
That's my job, so you can rely on it. Don't worry about that. So before we get started on today's call, I think, first of all, let's just talk quickly about why am I interviewing you on this call today?
Okay. So we have built a permissible travel framework, and we believe that the response phase of travel management is complete now. The majority of travellers are home, and that's been a tough stage for the travel managers to deal with. But now it's time to prepare for the return. At some point, the return is coming, whether that's within weeks or months, it's coming, and the date is out of our control. So we all need to be ready for that. I've been listening to many different webinars, as I'm sure we all have, and I hear hundreds of travel managers struggling with just where to start. We have a framework that our roaders and our outsourced travel managers have been using with their clients, and it works. So we figured, why don't we gift that framework to the industry? Any company can use it. So the purpose of this video is to help travel managers know how to use the framework.
Fantastic. So I guess let's start at the very beginning. Can you describe what that permissible travel framework is? What's it designed to do?
Sure. Quite simply, the permissible travel framework takes the mass of COVID-19 complexity and turns it into a straightforward, easy to use exercise that ultimately provides any company with a plan for the return to travel.
Okay. Why have we taken it upon ourselves to do this? Why is it that you passionately believe that it should be us that develops such a framework?
So my first thought was to our clients. I couldn't bear to see any one of our clients feeling the pain that they were feeling going through that initial phase. So basically, we threw every effort at making this easier for them. Then by attending those webinars that I mentioned and various different buyer groups that we're a part of, I started to hear confusion, frustration, and for some, being completely overwhelmed. Now, those webinars are great for hearing what your peers are doing, but ultimately at some point you need to get to a plan and you need to get executive sign-off. So I reflected on that and realized as a group of consultants, we know how to create frameworks. That's what we do day in, day out. And so far, 27 companies have used it, and the feedback has been excellent. And then, Paul, remember that moment I came to you saying, right, we've helped all of our clients. Now we should go gift this to the industry.
I guess it's sort of to add to that, there's lots of conversations going on about responses to COVID-19 and preparing for a return to travel. This is really just about structuring all of that stuff into a format that takes somebody through a journey to get to a point where they can start releasing travellers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so who's it aimed at primarily?
Any company, any size, any location, in any stage of the planning process. So I guess in short, any travel manager, any company. If they've already started their planning process, then the feedback we've had is it serves as a really good cross-check. If they haven't started, then it's absolutely the right place to start from step zero, and is going to help you build out your plan, and everyone in between. Okay. It really is for anyone.
And we've tested this with people that have already started the process. I think it's right, isn't it? And they've sort of said that actually it acts as a really good check that they're on that right pathway.
Yeah, the companies that had already started, firstly, kudos to them, brilliant. What they found is that they got themselves into a really complex, overwhelmed place. There was just too much information. So they'd made a really brilliant start in that they had lots of information. They just didn't know how to structure that back out to getting executive approval. Okay. So by going through the logical steps of the framework and these very carefully worded questions that we've created, they were able to then get to a simplified answer.
Okay. And just before we get into how the thing actually works, what percentage of the people that you'd spoken to so far would you say have started that process, and what percentage are just beginning to get to that point?
Yeah, it's less than 10% that are through and at the exec summary stage. So
Okay.
If anyone's listening now and in a panic that they should already have a plan, absolutely not. And also, I think some of the concern about when to start driving a planning process is some might have a travel ban through to the end of September. So they're sitting here in May time saying, oh, well, I've got a long way to go. At any point, that could be pulled forward.
Yeah.
The other uncertainty around timing is, and that's part of what's built into this permissible travel framework, is you are actually out of control as to when travel will start again. And that's a really uncomfortable feeling as a travel manager.
Yeah.
I really get this sense that they want certainty in a period of uncertainty. So maybe one state in the US is going to open for travel in 2 weeks' time, another one in 2 days, another one in 2 months, and then layer into the complexity of all the different countries opening at different times. So I think that's the bit that's probably the most overwhelming, but the framework helps with think that through.
Okay, awesome. So let's just talk about the framework itself. So let's talk a little bit about its structure and the sort of process that people would go through.
Okay. So we built the framework really trying to think about making it accessible to anyone. So it's in Excel, because I believe everyone uses Excel of some type. So think of an Excel document. It's a series of tabs. The first is the set of instructions, so anyone can use it virtually themselves. And then you just work yourself across the tabs, answering all of the questions. Now, the most important part is the assessment tab, and that's you really thinking through what you need to happen internally in your organization. What we're finding at the moment is a number of buyers are focusing on what's a hotel cleanliness routine, what do airlines need to be able to fly again, all those things. Those things are going to get answered, and they're happening externally, and they need to be driven at an industry level. The first thing you need to focus on is inside your organization. So that's what we really focus on the first stage of the framework. And there's 20 mandatory questions. Some of them are actually quite straightforward, and some of them are intentionally difficult. And I say that because they're not intentionally difficult because we like to be difficult. It's a hard question that you're going to have to go engage with your stakeholders and your executives to get the right answer. And that's what will drive you to the right permissible travel answer for your company. Okay. So once you've gone through that, so you're in that first stage and you've completed that exercise, the next step is to go gain executive sign-off. We can help there too if people need guidance. So as soon as you've got that sign-off, you then need to go into operationalizing. Now, operationalizing normally means you're going to need an extraordinary COVID-19 travel policy, for instance. One of our clients has called that a pop-up travel policy, which I quite like.
Yeah.
And then you need to take that to your suppliers to say, right, we're ready to get going. And what we hear from the supplier community is that's what they really need. They need to understand what the buyers need. So it feels like we're in a bit of a chicken and egg situation at the moment. And I'm really hoping that this framework is going to help both sides of the buy-supply equation move forwards together.
So let's talk about that bit, because this is primarily aimed at the buyer community to help them, give them a structure for a pathway to return to travel. How might this help the supplier community?
I really hope the supplier community engage with this, actually. So imagine if all suppliers started to understand this COVID-19 response from inside the mind of a buyer.
Yeah. And
they put themselves in the buyer's shoes and understand the process that they've got to go through. I think that would really help all suppliers plan more effectively. So what I would really encourage suppliers to go through it. Some of it might be a bit of a foreign language because you're not a travel manager, but it would help you plan your company's response and all of the resources that you could be creating and the answers to the questions that your buyers need. And we've been really careful in the writing of the framework, because what I really don't want to create here, and I don't think anyone would want to create this, is suppliers getting inundated with additional questions from their buyers. Because I get that they're already maybe low on the ground on resource and high on the ground on the number of questions coming to them. So imagine if this set of questions was about 80% right, that 80% of companies all had the same questions. That's going to help suppliers really build their response at scale and make it much easier for them.
Okay, great. Where is it and when is it available?
So it's available right now. You can go to our website, so festive-road.com. Of course, it will be all over social channels. You know us. We like being on Twitter and LinkedIn and the like.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. And then a number of industry associations also will be publishing the framework for their members and running webinars. So you'll see me on screen a little bit more talking through the framework in some more detail.
We've talked about using a series of interviews like this with buyers in the coming weeks to kind of talk about the Permissible Travel Framework. What do you expect those interviews to provide to those who watch them?
I imagine it would be like a series of how-to videos. So as a former travel manager, I always loved hearing from others that had already been through what I was going through. So imagine the framework broken down into small bite-sized chunks, and having travel managers who have already been through that part of the framework coming and sharing what they did, how they did it, and the results. We feel that will really help expedite delivery, but also help people feel more comfortable and benchmarked in their delivery. So that might be just one, how someone approached the framework, 2, how they created their extraordinary policy, 3, how they went in front of the executives to gain approval, 4, how they engaged with stakeholder groups, etc., etc. Okay.
So that brings us really to the end of this interview. The first thing I have to do is congratulate you on not using the word, the phrase unprecedented times, which seems to be...
Oh, come on, let me use that in the close.
You can do, please feel free. How did it feel being on the receiving end of being interviewed? I didn't really give you any hard questions, let's admit it.
Do you know what? Strangely comfortable. I guess we've worked with each other for, I don't know, is it 15 years or something now? So if anyone can interview me, it should be you. But you know what? Probably the result of the last couple of months have been we're strangely aligned. You and I on stage debating distribution or travel policy, we're going to debate. But on this,
yes,
I think, you know, some really strong alignment, and we both get this is what needs to happen.
Yeah, there is no other option, right? So, well, thank you for joining us today. And just a reminder that people can download the Permissible Travel Framework either from the BTN Hub or from festive-road.com. And everyone needs to watch out for what we're calling 26 and beyond, which are these next set of buyer interviews. Caroline, enjoy the rest of your day. These days are quite interesting. I'm sure you've got a lot ahead of yourself today, but thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Paul.